Hi, I'm Nick, and in today's video I'll be unboxing the Bafang BBSHD CAN bus mid-drive motor. And before we get started, let me show you what I purchased. I ordered this mid-drive kit from Green Energy Choice store at AliExpress. A brief look at what I ordered. And 3 days after ordering this, it had already arrived. This package shipped from Las Vegas, Nevada. And there's not much to this box. It does say CAN for CAN-BUS, and I can't decipher anything on this label. Kit definitely does not come with a battery. I did not order one with it. Let's go ahead and see what's inside and included. So this looks like some brake sensors, an installation tool, bunch of loose zip ties here. We have instruction manual, which we could look at in a little bit later. This is the Chainring, 46 tooth, and it is quite heavy. This is some hardware for installing the mid-drive motor, and it looks like it comes with an included headlight, which we could take a look at. This is one of the crank arms. We have another crank arm here, and here it is a throttle. Looks like a similar connection to the UART throttle. This is the CAN bus model. And underneath should be the motor. Here's a look at the motor. Up here, I believe, is the display. Even says DPC010. Looks like maybe even some hardware for a 733 millimeter shell width of your bottom bracket. And I did order the brake levers, so there are 2 brake levers in here for mechanical or cable actuator brakes. This is a removal tool for a square tapered bottom bracket, or to remove the crankset from the square tapered bottom bracket, and this is for splined bottom bracket removal. The motor. Off of the user manual, I'll point out some notable important things. There's the motor shaft right here, and they come in 3 lengths: 68 millimeters, 100 millimeters, and 120 millimeters. Tools required for install. These lower 3 tools are included. This is how the motor looks when you install it, and the bottom bracket is right there through the frame of your bicycle. SHD or M615 should have 160 Newton meters of torque. Actually say store between 15 to 95% humidity. Other pages are all just in different languages. I thought there was a lot more to this, but just different languages. Some warranty information. I want you just to scan the QR code. A little bit about service. And finally, that's it for this user manual. Take a look at this motor. It is definitely not light. I just weighed it at 12.8 pounds. And after you remove the bottom bracket, this is where it goes inside, slides into the bicycle there. Apparently, right upon initial looking, you can see that these are for square tapered cranks. Square tapered cranks on each end, one here and on the other end as well. On the shaft here is the Made in China sticker, and this is the bottom with some of the, or all of the wiring coming out. This is 1000 watt, and I did get the BBSHD. It is thicker, heavier, and has more pronounced cooling fins. Order the 48 volt version, and that's perfect. It says 48 volt here, and this is for the controller information. There are 5 bolts here, and they are for the chainring, and they are different from the BBS02. The spacing is different, and the chainrings are not compatible with each other. The non-drive side, or the left side of the bicycle, and what is apparent are there's screw holes here and a screw hole over there, and it lines up right here, kind of on the other side of the bottom bracket. And if you want to put a stabilizer bar, you can mount it right there, and it could stick out and attach to a part of your frame. Just thought, what are you talking about? This is a stabilizer bar, and this is a BBS02, and see how it attaches there. And I went ahead and clamped it to the frame of my mountain bike here. So they have the same mounts here on the BBSHD. The CAN bus motors have different wires. Not all of the wires are the same, however, they do share some similarities. Let's start with the similar wires that are on this side, and then the new wires that are different from the older version of this are on the right side. These 3 have carried over. This left one I use for the shift sensor, so that when you're using power and you shift, the shift sensor, which is not included, attaches here and it briefly cuts off the motor. This next one is the XT60, and this one is to power the whole unit and could connect to the battery. Next is a headlight, and in the past it has been 6 volts at half an amp, so you only get 3 watts out of the headlight. I don't know how many watts or voltage this one outputs. Here's a look at the 4 new or unique cables coming out of the controller. This one to the left is a main one that connects to a splitter, and the splitter connects to the brake cutoff switches and the speedometer head unit, along with the throttle too. This next one is the speedometer. This yellow one is for battery information. Some batteries do not have this, so you don't use it. So you just put a tape over it, electrical tape over it, and just don't use it. And then finally we have this one for a rear tail light. Or maybe it's this one for the rear or this one for the rear. I'm not sure. But I think they probably both turn on at the same time. So if you're looking at the non-drive side, notice where the cables are coming out of the motor. It's on the right side on the bottom, and they're pointing backwards. It's important to note because when you look at an installed bicycle, you could see that the cables come out from underneath and then they go between the wheel and the seat tube and up the seat tube. This one's 19 inches or about 49 centimeters long for the battery. Gear shift sensor is about 10 inches or 25 centimeters long. And this is what it looks like. Front and rear lights are also about 10 inches long or about 25 centimeters long. And that connects to the wiring harness is 20 inches or about 51 centimeters long. The speedometer cable is 15.5 inches long or about 40 centimeters. And this battery information sensor is about 19.5 inches or 50 centimeters long. Go ahead and look at the chainring. The distance is about 29 millimeters between the bolts. This is about a 50 millimeter bolt center diameter. It has an about 19 millimeter offset, which is the distance from the bolts to the chainring, and it's quite a bit less offset than if you were to compare it to this aftermarket chainring. This Gustavo chainring has approximately a 22 millimeter offset. 546 grams of stock chainring, which is a 46 tooth, is much heavier than this aftermarket Gustavo at 42 teeth, which is smaller at 188 grams. Gustavo is not included with the kit, but keep in mind this has a narrow wide profile, and the stock chainring does not have a narrow wide profile for the teeth. Go ahead and take a look at this wiring harness here. One side, this connects to the controller to the motor assembly. See, it's quite small at 8 millimeters wide, so it has 8 pins inside. Here's a look at the other side. The far 2 left are for the brake lever cutoffs. So what they do is they stop the motor when you apply the brake levers or brake sensors when they're triggered. This one here is for the throttle, and then the far right one in green is for the display. From end to end here is 29.5 inches or about 75 centimeters. Split here is about 6 inches from here to the end or about 15 centimeters. 6 inches is important to know because if you're using a non-traditional bike, the brake levers or the throttle will not initially go all the way to the ends of the bar. Look at the speed sensor. This cable is only about 3.5 inches long or 9 centimeters. It has a new connection, this CAN bus versus the UART protocol. The design is quite similar to that of the UART model. I think this comes in and out. So this comes in here and you slide this back in, and once you get the adjusted size, you can go ahead and put a screw in here to tighten it down to get it fit on what length you want it. We have to check later to see if this is omnidirectional, like can the sensor go back and forth this way or does it have to go perpendicular. With the UART protocol speed sensor, the magnet has to pass through this way. It cannot pass through this way, it wouldn't read it. So we'll see that and if it works later. Look at the magnet and the screw that's attached, and there is a little thing inside this, so it is kind of like a security 19.5 inches or approximately 49 centimeters from here to the very end. It's not that short of a cable, so that's pretty good. And also this throttle looks like it's similar to the older designs of the UART. Appears to be similar too, with the 3-prong connector. The responsiveness, take a look at where the silver is and see how far this goes down. This is full throttle and this is all the way. So it goes about from, let's say, 3 o'clock down to 4:30 if this is 6 o'clock position. Supposedly with the new UART, the throttle is a little more responsive and it doesn't go from 0 to 100, that there's a little more gradual acceleration depending on how hard you push this throttle. To attach this to the bar, there is a Allen key in there. I think it might be like a 2.5 millimeter, something quite small. And this throttle works for 22 millimeter handlebars. So if you have a road bike that's 31.8 millimeters or even a 25 millimeter, this would not fit. You would need some type of handlebar extension to mount or an adapter to mount this throttle on. This build, I purchased the mechanical brake levers. And the hand here is about 10 inches or 25 centimeters. The actual sensor here is inside here. You can see right there. And there's another look at the sensor that activates when this brake lever is lifted off of the brake. 4 inches or 10 centimeters, this brake lever is actually quite wide, and it's wide enough if you wanted to grip and put all 4 fingers onto the lever to brake. Compare them to my really nice XTR brake levers, you can see that they're quite a bit longer. Their look or an overlay of the mountain bike shifters for the XTR versus these mechanicals. They'll come quite a bit further out. Be no surprise that this is also 22 millimeters for mountain bike handlebars with it all the way open. 105 grams for the pair. I wouldn't say they're the lightest brake levers. Hands right here with the groove in here and the groove all the way through. You could put a cable over and into here without taking the whole brake cable out from the calipers. And then after that, you just tighten this and it closes it off. So you can see it opens and closes it off. So then the cable gets stuck inside the brake lever there after replacement. And order the DPC010 display. It's like it's packaged up quite nicely. Comes with 7 little grommets here, or spacers. I'm not sure why the odd number, because there's only 2 clamps here, and it comes also with odd number 3 screws. The screws should fit in here to clamp down over your handlebar or where you'd like to mount it. Be smart having a 36 millimeter wide opening here, because some of the newest mountain bikes actually feature a 35 millimeter handlebar. One spacer in, you can see it says 31.8 millimeters. And this comes out to about 31, but you could always loosen it and stretch it out to make it wider so it fits over that road handlebar. 2 spacers in, and now it's a 21.4 millimeter. That could always widen to be 22 millimeters, so you could put it over a mountain bike bar on the side if you'd like. This cable is just shy of 1 foot, so closer to 29 centimeters, and this is the controls. So this odd one here, that's probably for here to put it inside. And the controls is 23.5 millimeters wide. For putting in the rubber spacer, it's about 21 millimeters. However, you could loosen it out a little bit to get to your 22 millimeter bar. Then use one of the screws. That's probably why there's 3 of them now. 1 screws for here, and the other 2 are for the clamps on the display itself. Display cable length is only 9 inches long, or about 22.5 centimeters. This one's definitely not compatible with the older UART protocol. This is for canvas. So we have quite a nice looking display, and also on the bottom here is a newer style USB-C rather than the older micro USB connectors. So to note on the bottom here appears to be a light sensor, so the screen can brighten or darken depending if you're riding in the day or nighttime. On the sides and the tops there are no physical buttons. All of the buttons are actually on this little wired remote next to it. The wired remote looks pretty nice. There's a power button, and up and down buttons as well. So you can see I put the mic here, and you can listen to hear that there is a little click for the up and down, but not the power button. For the mounting hardware of the mid-drive. Also in this kit's another bag. It comes with 73mm hardware for mountain bikes. This was in the white bag. Bolts are to attach the crank arms onto the motor. I have the chainring bolts here. There's 5 of them. These are for the torque arm for 68mm, and these here for 73mm with the spacers. These are the nuts to tighten the motor onto the frame. So there's one here and another one that goes over. This one says 50 to 60 Newton meters. Second one's 25 to 30 Newton meters. Included is the tool, so you can see there's a tool to attach this one and also this one. The stock stabilizer bar to prevent the motor from rocking while it's in the bottom bracket. And notice that it does have some grooves here, and these grooves here bite into your bicycle frame to create a lot of grip there. But if you don't want to use this, you could always use a stabilizer bar aftermarket that's not included. So I'll show you how these bolts and everything's connected to the bike frame. Motor, you can see that the bolts here for this mountain bike is 73mm, so this is where the spacers are going, and these are the install screws. An aftermarket stabilizer bar here in lieu of the stock one that bites into the frame. And then the 2 nuts are right here. The fully metallic one is on the inside, that's tightened tighter than the outside one as well. And here's a look at the crank arm bolts. On this BBSHD build for a 68mm, you can see that there's no spacers for the bolts here. It attaches from the motor right here straight in to this torque arm or stabilizer bar for this trike. These are the 2 mounting bolts, and then this is the bolt for the crank arm. Speaking of the installation, it does come with the tools, which is a square bottom bracket crank arm remover, and also an older Octalink bottom bracket remover or installer also. Kit does come with these 2 crank arms, and one thing to note is that they only come in one size that I'm aware of, and that's 170mm from the center here to the center of the pedal spindle. Sides are square taper, however the threading is different on both of them, so you cannot use 2 right hand sides or 2 left hand sides. You need to have 1 left and 1 right side to make it work. Came with a free light, and also it looks pretty nice. There's 4 LEDs here, and typically the ones I've gotten for the other free kits just have 1 LED. I'm actually pretty excited to go ahead and try this light out, because there's one feature that's new about this light that's much better, hopefully, than the older UART protocol. This light was manufactured in April of 2025, and underneath it says 36 to 48 volts. Wow! Why is this a wow? That's because in the past, the lights were only rated for 6 volts at half an amp, which is only 3 watts. And the 3 watt light definitely wasn't bright enough for nighttime riding at e-bike speeds, which could be close to 20 miles an hour in the dark. 5 feet long, this cable is quite long, or approximately 152 centimeters. And this light does not come with any bolts to mount it to your bicycle, so you have to get creative on how to mount it if you don't have any screws in your fork. Now let me show you what that means. Our recumbent fork here does have compatibility where you could put a bolt inside there and mount the light off the front. All bikes have this type of mount here. Mountain bike, I just went ahead and used zip ties and I attached it to the front fork above the suspension, so when the wheel's bouncing up and down, this one doesn't move as much. On the Catrike 700, it's mounted on the front derailleur post here, and you can see that there's zip ties under there holding this light, which is actually great as a daytime running light, but definitely not bright enough at 3 watts for nighttime riding. Because there's no battery, 97 grams is quite light for the light. Mind there are 2 different light outputs, front and rear, for the controller. So this black and red one, black and red here, may be for the 48 volt, and I'm not sure if this black and white one for the rear tail light is only 6 volts. Lastly, there's some zip ties. All right, so I have a battery here, and I'm gonna go ahead and hook up the new BBSHD to see if it works with this older battery system. All right, it only took about 5 minutes to plug everything together. And you have a battery connected to the motor, which is connected to the wiring harness. Wiring harness is connected to display, the brake cables, and the throttle here. Connected to the motor is the headlight and the speed sensor here. There goes nothing. I'll go ahead and hold on to the power button. Oh, and it's the very first time it's turning on, so we'll see what happens. And the light turned on. And the light off. I think I have to hold on to this upper button here. One thing I'm curious about is if I could program the motor just to detune it a little bit within the display itself. Now some controllers allow that with the newest firmware, and I'm not sure which one I got. So let's go take a look. To get to the menu settings, you push and hold the plus and minus buttons together. You go ahead and select it on this orange brightness, push up once, go into others and press the power button here to select others. And now it says HMI settings, information, language, theme, advanced settings, and riding parameters. Oh, this is amazing. Here you could set the speed limit percentage and current limit percentage, and I hope that I could push enter here and go down and change and take a look at some of the percentages. So stock, this is how it is: 37, 50, 64, 85, and 100. Then we'll go ahead and take a look at this current limit percentage. Should determine how much power there is for each level, and this only has the option of 5 PAS, which is power assist levels. And this is super cool. Hopefully I can move it down, because at 40% or 39%, that's way too much for power level 1. So if this is 1000 watts, 39% is already 390 watts, which is huge. Way too much, in my opinion. So I'm actually going to go down and see if I could change it. So go back to 39, and let's say 10% is 100 watts, and see if I could save it. And the lowest, oh, is 10%. That's a drawback, definitely, is 10%. I'm clicking on this down button, and that's as low as you could go. So you could go up, but not lower than 10%. Push the enter, move down, and hopefully that saves. So I go back in again, and yes, it did save. So I go back and exit. Briefly, this is the sport display. Change the theme here. The fashion display, which I might keep because it shows your power in watts, your trip, battery percentage, pretty large, and your speed. So change it on the main menu just by holding both the plus and the minus at the same time. You can go ahead down and select your theme. This one's a technology. Here you see the trip, battery, speed, and perhaps the power over here. You get to another mode, you double click the power button, and then you can have the speed, trip, odometer, maximum speed, average speed, range in kilometers, calories, I'm not sure how this works, cadence, time, and then power watts for the motor, current, amps, and then the volts of the battery. One thing pretty cool is for this range in kilometers, when I go eco mode, look, it shows 105 kilometers. This is a gas tour mode, drops to 66 sport mode, 59 sport plus, 52, and then boost 48 kilometer range. I did change it to 10%. I moved it back to 39% for the current, and it only dropped it 4 kilometers for the range. I'll go take a look at the wheel magnet. So back and forth this way, it looks like you're registering some speed. However, if I go up and down, it looks like it doesn't work up and down. So you have to go side to side to get some speed. Similar to the other Bafang motors, this only works back and forth this way. tried again going up and down like this, and you can see it's still at 0. The light on, this is for the rear tail light, and one interesting thing to note here is it's 34 volts for the tail light there. And take a look at the front here, and that's 51.8 volts. That is interesting. So that's the same voltage coming straight out of the battery. So I'm wondering why the rear is much lower voltage. Very interesting. I plugged the light into the rear at 36 volt. It turns on and then it turns off. So it needs more juice than that. The light beam is like a spotlight. It's really small. And I'm about 8-10 feet away from the wall here. Now let's talk about some of the things you need to know before you make the purchase to purchase a mid-drive kit. This canvas kit has been around for a while. However, in the beginning, they were not programmable. So I wanted to make sure I could get one that had a programmable display. And this one sure does, but you have to check with the manufacturer or the seller to see which one they are selling. This is from AliExpress Green Energy Choice store, and specifically asked them. Directly I asked if you could set the power level with a programming function of the DPC010 display. And they replied back to me with a few links and just said, you can check. Back to them letting them know I couldn't check, and they also said that they do have some canvas motor programming cables. A link for this cable here, however, it couldn't be shipped to USA or to my address. So I was pretty lucky with this kit getting one that could be programmed, so I also asked and checked other sellers as well. A few sellers on Amazon got back to me. One of them is LAS Cycle, and they claim that their DPC010 display is fully programmable. Seller Green Energy was also contacted. Also stated that their DPC010 display can also be programmed. Unfortunately, attached picture wasn't included. If you want to get the kit that can be programmed with the display, then this DPC010 is the display to get, and make sure the seller has the model that you want that can be programmed. Now for number 2 things to know, let's talk about fit and compatibility. While it's nice to have a mid-drive kit, if it doesn't fit your bike, then it's not the kit for you. On this aluminum mountain bike, this kit should fit, and the triangle in here is large enough to fit a battery as well. Take a look at the crank and chain set right here, how it barely fits. On the right side, you can see that the motor comes really close to the frame. On this motor here, it's this part right here that's almost touching the chainstay. There are definitely some templates out there that you can insert into your bottom bracket area to see if it fits, and the motor here clears your chainstay and seat tube. My full suspension mountain bike, it's carbon, so I wouldn't be using it for a mid motor, and also the center area right here is too small for a decent sized battery. My BMC road bike is a definitely no for conversion as well because it is carbon. The recumbent trike is compatible and already has a BBSHD on it. And my plan is to put it on this bike, a Vaquera recumbent. You notice in this area there's plenty of space for clearance for where the motor is going to go. Bicycle Journey is definitely incompatible. It does not work. If you look at the bottom bracket area, look how fat this area is. It would not clear between the motor and the spindle. To tell from this angle, but there's only about 12 millimeters at most, referring to the spacing between this part that goes into the bottom bracket and the motor assembly. And this folding bike here is also a definite no, because if I put a mid-drive right here in the front area, by the time you fold it, the wheel comes right in that area. It'll be right here, so you wouldn't even be able to fold this tri-fold folding bike. Next, another great thing to know is the lengths of all of the cables. So I made a chart for you guys to take a look, and feel free to pause the screen to see the lengths of all of the cables that I have measured. A look at all of the lengths in inches, and if you would like the exact length in centimeters, multiply the inches by 2.54. Adding all this to a bicycle will most certainly add weight to your overall ride. So let's go take a look at the weight of these components and how much it should add in terms of weight to your bike. The mountain bike I have, it added about 20 to 25 pounds. Just the motor assembly alone, minus the box, which is 1.3 pounds, comes at 16.3 pounds. Then I add the battery, which is an additional 9.4 pounds. Don't forget, we also have to subtract the weight of the crank and the bottom bracket. Kit here's adding 24 pounds, or approximately 10.8 kilograms. If you have a great FTP of 4 watts per kilogram with an extra 11 kilograms approximately, you'd only need a boost of 44 watts just to break even, as if the bike weren't there on climbs. Number 5, let's talk about what can be programmed with this new kit. Talk about wheel size and then go to speed limit. In the settings, it looks like you could put your own number in, so let's check. Go ahead and try 1 inch and see if that works here. Waiting. And yes, 1 inch wheel size. For the perimeter, or is that diameter, stuck at 200.7 centimeters. I tried to move that to 1 centimeter, and looks like you can move that down to 1 centimeter for the lowest. Holding bike territory, go to 16, see if that works, and you're going to have to wait for a second before it reprograms it in. And I'll show you this is real time. You can move the wheel diameter, perimeter around as well. I also was able to make it for maximum. Well, I could probably go larger than this, but the largest that I'm familiar with is a 36-inch wheel with a wheel diameter of 287 centimeters. Only move it back to 26-inch. Put the speed limit all at 1 mile an hour, and that worked. 10 miles an hour, so I'm pushing 9 one more time. It says invalid. Tried 70, and that says invalid. Also 63 was invalid. So then I went down to 62, and that seems to be the maximum. Percentage of the maximum speed in which the battery or motor will cut off in terms of each power level. Limit also has reset. Mentioned earlier, the lowest is only 10%. Number 6 thing to know is you could use any battery that's compatible. Just make sure that you have the same voltage. So if this is a 48 volt system, that you have a 48 volt battery, and also make sure that the battery could handle the current. Now this is listed as a 1000 watt motor. It may draw more current to give more power. For example, at let's say 50 volts and 28 amp hours, that's 1400 watts. So make sure that this battery can take a draw of 28 amps or almost up to 30 amps. Don't get a battery undersized that will overdraw current on the battery. And finally, for number 7, this kit that I purchased is not complete. You need a few more things, and I will show you what I purchased in addition to hopefully build out this new bike. Foremost, you're going to need a battery and a compatible base. The battery that I have, 840 watt hour, 17.5 amp hour at 48 volts. Free to get whichever battery that you like that's compatible with the kit. Stuff may not be necessary, but here's what I got. I have a speedometer extension cable for a brake or shift sensor. I have the shift sensor here. Really good on the BBS010 and the BBSHD for the UART version. Convert this into a rear light. However, it is a female plug here, so I needed to convert. The motor here was a female plug, so I needed a male to male conversion. It's a male here. Connector is a female. That this was 36 volt, and so this light is 36 volt compatible with this SM plug or 2-pin plug here. It's not that bright, but I'm going to go ahead and put some red tape over it. I bought some red lens repair tape 3M, and I could tape over the reflector and the rear light to make it red. A bunch of these 2-pin connectors, as you can see here. I don't need that many. Purchased a hose clamp kit with a bunch of fasteners and some rubber so I could wrap it around the frame in order to attach the battery to my bike. At the stabilizer bar, while this is not 100% necessary, I do like it so you don't put too much torque on the bottom bracket area of your bicycle. Well, if you got this far, thank you so much for watching. If you have any kind comments or any questions, feel free to put them in the comments section below. And if you haven't subscribed, it's completely free. I do not have currently a membership or any of those fancy things on YouTube. So please let me know if you have any questions again, and have a great day. Thank you.